So we'll start off with the definition of a raid, because it's PowerPoint and we gotta be corporate. And no, I'm just kidding. The dictionary defines a raid as an entrance into another's territory for the purpose of seizing goods or valuables. So we know exactly why you guys are raiding. Don't think for a second that we're ignorant to that. For today's discussion, when we talk about raiding, we're talking about large groups encountering tough NPCs at the end game. So let's talk about endgame content and why that is important. We don't have experience loss in World of Warcraft, and heat only rises. All of our player characters, anybody who buys World of Warcraft and starts playing, they're only going to level up. We also have to give players something to aspire to. There's a lot to be said for that moment when you're sitting in Orgrimmar as a newbie and somebody runs through in like all raid gear and you're like, wow, that guy must be so powerful. Or eBay or something. Anyway, the world feels a lot bigger for everyone if there's unbeaten content out there. Even if you're the guy who's like level 30 doing an Arathi Highlands quest, but you know that the resident Uber guild of your servers, trying to kill Nefarian, it creates an epic feel for the whole world. How come there aren't any low-level raids? If you ever want to raid something at low level, you could just try something that's higher level, but there's no real point to us creating this raid content that's going to be trivialized by levels anyway. I'll never raid. Why should I care about raid content in World of Warcraft? Well, we hear this all the time, and then people end up contradicting themselves. They actually end up raiding. So a lot of people say, I'll never, that's not something that I'll ever do, and then they'll get into that like one Zul'Gurub raid and go, that was so much fun, I got this awesome item, it's actually something I want to do. I told everybody yesterday about my mom. She had never played a video game before, and then I got her into our friends and family alpha thinking she'd load it up and go, oh, the graphics are pretty, is that what you do? But she actually started playing the game and she got pretty good at it, and now she has 2 level 60s and a level 50 that she's like on the way up with that one. And she plays Horde, by the way, so she's... So my whole point is that people who said that they would never engage in this sort of thing might one day find themselves doing it. She gets invited to Molten Core raids all the time. So there's what I like to call the 1% myth. Why do you create content for 1% of your population? 1% is such a convenient number, just pulled out of thin air. Our server programmers, Joe Rumsey and Brian Gibson-Winge, provided me with some statistics. They're able to log everything. So every night at prime time in the US, there are 500 Molten Cores with 15,000 players, 150 Onyxias with 2,500 players, 250 Blackwing Lairs, that's 6,000 players, and 700 Zul'Gurub instances with 10,000 players. But I like to point out that most raiding guilds do Onyxia once a week, and they do Molten Core one night a week. So this is different groups that you're seeing. On a lot of servers, we will see 500 to 700 people in Molten Core at prime time every night of the week. So there's a ton of people. On the weekend, like right now, there's going to be 35,000 people in Molten Core and Zul'Gurub. So 800 of those Molten Cores and 700 Zul'Gurubs. The night Zul'Gurub went live, I think we had 2,300 instances of it running just during prime time. That's like a 2-hour window. So Onyxia was the first raid encounter that we implemented. I took a picture of her on her birthday right there. That's right after she got placed. It's a placeholder model. We didn't have the final model for Onyxia at the time. So it's, I think, August 12th at 11:30 p.m. That's the time. So we wanted to break the standard raid mold with her. We wanted to make her a really compelling encounter. So here's some of the things that we did. We concepted a 3-stage encounter. Stage 1 is the introduction. There she is sleeping, and you see her and your guild charges in, and your main tank better turn her quick enough, or that guy you want to kick out of the guild is in the whelps, and And just kick the guy out already, you know? He's just absorbing loot. Anyway, so then, we thought it was cool. You were fighting on Nixia. Oh, wow, she looks awesome. We're all in the right place. We wanted to mix it up. Let's have another stage where everybody changes roles. So, and also it was like this challenge to us, like, can we make her fly? And we did. So Onyxia flies. And then stage 3 is the all hell breaks loose stage. And that's where everybody better do the right things at the right time. So kind of like the grand finale. When we're making a raid encounter, we sit down and constantly ask ourselves, what is each class doing right now? If I'm a druid, what am I doing? Am I healing? Is there something for me to hibernate? If I'm a rogue, am I going to get ripped apart by the AE? If I'm a warrior, am I single tanking this or off tanking? We have to ask ourselves, what is each class doing? We never want to approach a raid from too far back and too big picture that we forget what it's like to be an individual player at that encounter at that time. So we also try to mix things up, and I think Onyxia is a good example of that, or like the Razor Gore encounter. We don't want everything to be like this 30-minute snooze fest of, okay, here we go, everybody start doing DPS and healing, and that's all you're going to do for the next 30 minutes, because there's just nothing interesting about that. And we also don't want one boss to feel just like the next boss. So if you look at Molten Core, compare Magmadar to Lucifron. Within any raid dungeon, we also want the fights to feel very different. We don't want them to all feel the same. So we always have a duration in mind before implementing an encounter. Sometimes we come close to hitting these durations, sometimes we're way off. As an example, for Valenstraws, our whole vision for that encounter is that it would be a 2-minute fight. Or actually 3 minutes is the real timer, because then you're screwed. So pacing is important in these fights. We don't want it ever to feel like something is dragging out. And if it ever feels like that, then we've done something wrong and we need to go back and fix it somehow. We want to challenge the players so they feel a sense of accomplishment. This is a real tricky one. You can turn that knob of difficulty up on the players. If you ratchet it up too high, it creates a lot of frustration on the player base. We try to make it challenging, but not too challenging at the same time. And then we constantly want to raise the bar on ourselves. And what I mean by this is come up with new encounters that we hadn't done before. So like in our dungeons, we come up with guys like Arcadus, which is this awesome titan who's, bringing guys out of stone form all around the room. And then we get to our raid encounter. It's like we have to do something a little bit more than that. This slide I call SMART. This is to address a lot of things that always comes up on the boards. How come you guys don't make a smart raid boss? Wouldn't a smart raid boss kill all the healers first? Okay, for 1 second, pretend that you play a priest. And let's pretend Onyxia is so brilliant that she's figured out somehow to kill the priest first. So your raid charges down into Onyxia's lair, and bam, 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 all your priests are killed. Did that somehow make the encounter more fun for anybody at that point? Everybody always likes to play the realism card, well, of course I would kill the priest if I was, but there's not really dragons at the end of the day, and they don't walk around with like helms of wrath stashed under their wings. So sometimes you got to do stuff to address gameplay. I like to say that killing players is easy. So I think Jeff, if he wanted to, he could kill you in any way that you could possibly imagine. He could kill the druids by mind controlling the priests and having them kill the druids if he wanted to. And then Scott could send you to Thousand Needles, kill you, and break all your gear. We have amazing tools. It's not like we're limited by technology. We could kill you anytime we want, like in the beta. That's Magmadar and Stormwind, and those are real players. We could put everybody. We could put Ragnaros in Razor Hill. I think we did that. Nobody still to this day knows who put Ragnaros in Razor Hill, but he was there. So that's Magmadar in Stormwind. So killing players is really one of the easiest things that we can do. It doesn't even take a lot of thought. You know, we can be really non-creative and just, oops, you know, cleave, but for 8 billion and everybody's dead. So the point is, it's not like it's us against you guys. We're not trying to, like, Nefarian's not our baby and don't kill him. We put him in the game so you'll kill him, you know? Like, we want you to kill our raid monsters. We put loot on them because we expect you to kill those things. So you have to get away from this assumption that we have to have content that we just don't want the players to beat. We want you to beat our encounters, but we want the encounters to challenge you in a fun and creative way. We want you to, as players, to walk away and say, we really had to work on our strategy. We didn't get it on the first try. You know, maybe we didn't even get it on the first 2 weeks of trying, but we were able to, you know, unify as a raid and beat this thing. So challenging players in a fun way is the designer's challenge. That's what we have to come up with. So this brings us to our next slide. These are raid creatures and who kills what the most. In one day, Valenstraws killed 24,000 people. And then you have the Bloodlord with 11,000 people and Fire Maws at like 10,000. And I threw some other stuff in there, like on the low end of the scale is the Rizashi Adder. That's like one of the snakes in Zul'Gurub. 4,000, the Firewalker, which is just funny. Like, I love watching people pull those, you know. Like, make the Paladin pull the Firewalker. I'm serious, too. It's like, anyway. As comparison, the Gadget Sam Bruiser is weighing in there, so maybe we should put purple loot on that guy or something. He's earning his keep, goblin style. Also, the Defias Pillagers. I like to point out that the Alliance is not easy mode. Anybody who's been level 14 in Westfall, yeah. It's hard, man. Moonbrook, they're like, you see 4 of them start at once, and you're like, oh, God. Sentinel Hill. So even with the best individual skilled players, and you put us all together in the same raid at Blizzard, and we suck. We are a great player. We made the game. We made the encounter. We know the strat. We have awesome loot. But we don't play together like every day like you guys do. And we also, you know, we don't care about like DKP and all of this. We're not looking, when we engage a raid encounter, you'd be surprised at what a psychological difference that makes on a raid. So as an end result, we suck when we play as a raid as a whole, and we spaz out and we die like crazy. Oh my God. We had that one guy we're trying to do Hakar. We're testing him. And we know the strat. Jeff made up the encounter, and Jeff's telling us what to do, and he's like, all right, guys, just don't remove, you know, the curse, whatever you do. And this dude is just spamming, you know, and he's like, when we want the curse removed, we can't get it removed, but this one time, there's a guy, just everybody stripped of it. And sometimes things occur on production realms that cannot be simulated in-house. So a lot of the testing that we do is not actually on a production realm, but on our own personal servers. But so then we try to test it on the PTR too, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So a lot of players wanted a Blackwing Lair kept off the PTR. So players wanted the sense of competition and surprise revealed by keeping Blackwing Lair off the PTR. So we did that, but we felt like ultimately the zone was not tested as thoroughly as it needed to be, and it suffered for that. And for that, we apologize. We make mistakes. We never claim that we're infallible, and we learned from that. So as all of you guys know, we followed it up right away with Zul'Gurub. We put it on the test server, and we feel like it was a pretty solid zone when it came out. Relatively few bugs there. WoW was in alpha/beta for over 1 year, and our current patch turnaround cycle is somewhere from 3 to 8 weeks, and this includes development and testing. That's a really short period of time. WoW was so polished when it came out, the 1 to 59 game, because we had a long time to work on that content and make sure it's solid. Well, you take something like a zone like Blackwing Lair, under tremendous demand from the player base to get it out as quickly as possible, And it sort of puts an extra burden on us to make sure that, you know, we get extra testing or whatever. I just want to remind everybody that these patch cycles are extremely fast compared to normal development. So sometimes that causes us to let a bug here and there slip in, and we try to fix those as quickly as possible, obviously. I'll just finish up with looking at the big picture a little bit. Our goal is to have enough content to keep a full-time raiding guild busy each night of the week for a week. For the expansion, we want to deliver a menu of raid content. Kind of the way that raid content has worked out so far in WoW has been very linear, and we feel like this causes a lot of problems. And then finally, bigger is not always better. What I'm talking about is raid size. Even hardcore raid players, and I know lots of them, and I am one myself, appreciate a smaller raid. Adding more people to a raid does not make it better somehow. All it does is make us turn to math to go, okay, we've got to ramp the DPS up, and then they've got to ramp their character, you know, power up, and it kind of does this whole inflation of the game that's not necessary. If we can keep raid sizes smaller, each individual who shows up counts for more, and their decisions feel more impactful. It's much cooler if each person in the raid can feel like they're contributing to something, rather than, you know, okay, Jeff is DPS, Steven is healing, you know, Alex is more DPS, God is healing. Like, we don't want it to be a numbers game. We want every individual who shows up on your raid to feel like they matter. So that's what I mean by bigger is not always better.